Hello everyone, I'm bringing you a video today looking at design of leggings, continuing the theme of sort of lower leg wear. We've looked at anklets and Australian gaiters recently, and I thought it'd be worth having a look at these as well. These were issued to the Royal Navy and other Commonwealth navies, and the design originates with the Mills Equipment Company. They are Mills pattern naval leggings, but none of those we're going to look at are actually manufactured by the Mills Equipment Company. They're different manufacturers, but that's where the design originates. So without further ado, we'll get into the main part of the video now and have a look at these different designs of leggings in some detail. This is the first pair of leggings we're going to have a look at, and these are essentially manufactured to the first Mills pattern for these naval leggings, which is very closely based on a preceding design which had been used since the Victorian era, which were made of canvas and leather. They used leather straps and leather laces, very similar in form, but made of a canvas rather than the heavy cotton webbing we have here. Now this pattern was introduced around the time of the 1919 pattern web equipment, which we've talked about previously on the channel, set of equipment designed specifically for the Royal Navy, and these were used alongside both the 1919 pattern equipment, obviously used as a pistol equipment by the Royal Navy, and alongside the 1908 pattern equipment in the post-First World War years. This particular pair are actually Canadian made, and these are dated 1942, showing Canada stuck with this design into the Second World War when it had been replaced with the Royal Navy with a slightly updated design. I'm not entirely sure when British manufacturing switched over between the two designs we're going to have a look at here, but this is the initial design. You can see here these are made by ZL&T Limited, a prolific manufacturer of web equipment in Canada, size 2, and you can see the date here of 1942, and we obviously have the Canadian inspection stamp here. So these are interesting in that they are Canadian, but they illustrate the earlier British design as well. And you can see obviously we have the lacing down the side here. You can see that there. The two buckles, just a straight edge along the bottom. As I say, the form basically taken from the preceding canvas design. So you have straps top and bottom, and then the eyelets for the lacing down the side. So the way these fasten is the bottom strap and buckle fastens there, with the strap pointing to the rear, as we've talked about previously with anklets, and then the lacing is looped through the eyelets, and then you bring the next lace through, lace it through that lower lace, up to the next one, lace the top one through there, and again take it through the lower lace there, and then the strap passes through it like that and would fasten through that buckle at the top, and that's what secures these around the leg. With the preceding canvas design, the nomenclature actually varied between gaiter and leggings, but for this pattern it was standardised as leggings, so these are referred to as leggings officially, often referred to as gaiters of course, and as I say, introduced alongside or just after the 1919 pattern equipment, and used alongside it and the 1908 pattern equipment in the interwar years. Now, the next pattern we're going to have a look at varies slightly from this, slightly simplified and slightly more complex in terms of manufacturing it in other areas, but I'm not entirely sure when the change came, possibly in the late 1930s, certainly in British use during the Second World War, where you see these in use. This pattern doesn't tend to show up, although it's obviously prevalent in the drill manuals produced in the interwar years and in photographs of Royal Navy sailors operating on shore. This is the type used in the interwar years. It's seemingly by the Second World War the pattern had changed over in terms of new manufacture. These would still be around of course, but they don't seem to show up often in photographs. There aren't a huge number of photographs showing sailors operating on shore during the Second World War, and many of them of course they're wearing battle dress and using anklets with battle dress as opposed to wearing leggings. So a little bit difficult to just judge from photographs there. If anyone could provide a date of when this pattern was swapped for the pattern we're going to look at next, I'd be interested to know. And this is the pattern I'm referring to. This is the more common pattern of leggings you'll see, and these were produced through the Second World War and post-war as well, and we'll see a post-war pair in white in just a minute. But these are modified in terms of design. They are obviously shaped to fit over the top of the boot, common with anklets. You have the leather reinforcement here. You can see these are dated 1942 as well, but made to this updated pattern. These are British, made by W&AJT, as you can see there. Size 2, the broad arrow above that. And these are very nice condition, barely used. There is a little bit of, obviously, discoloration at the bottom here where you've had some shoe polish or dub-in rub off there, but they're otherwise in very, very nice condition. The design is modified in having a single strap at the top, and you obviously have this reinforcing piece running all the way along the top there. The buckle here and obviously the loop to keep the end of the strap from flapping around there. And you have an extra set of eyelets, or an extra eyelet and an extra lace at the bottom there rather. So you simply start lacing up from the bottom rather than having that bottom buckle and strap, which makes good sense really when you have the system of using the eyelets and lacing there anyway. Lace all the way up the side. You'll notice these are blackened fittings, blackened eyelets, as you can see there. On the previous example we looked at, something I didn't mention, we'll just bring one in to compare here. If I bring this back into shot here, you can see a comparison of the two next to each other. The eyelets on these are Sheridized steel, which is something you see in wartime manufacturing during the Second World War as an economy measure. Obviously on interwar versions of these, the eyelets would be brass. So those manufactured earlier, pre-Second World War, would be brass. And obviously by this time period, the British had switched over to manufacturing this updated design. So still seeing the earlier pattern manufactured in Canada. Australia was still manufacturing the even earlier version, the canvas and leather version, and the British had moved on to this slightly updated design as you have here. But these are commonly seen on the surplus market, and I just thought, as I say, it'd be interesting to make a video about them. You don't see them in use all that often during the war, but well, there aren't many photographs. They were used extensively, but there aren't many photographs showing them in use. So that's a comparison of the two side by side there, as you can see. So the lower strap deleted and the shape at the bottom changed here as well in order to fit over the top of the boot. Those are the main changes, and obviously the top strap here is contiguous with this reinforcing strip along the top there, as you can see. So quite a few changes to the design there, much as they basically serve the same function. This is a post-war pair of leggings we're going to have a look at here, and as you can see, these are made in a white finish. The webbing itself is white, and this was in line with the whitening of webbing which would become prevalent with the Royal Military Police, the Royal Air Force Police and the Royal Navy Regulating Branch, latterly the Royal Navy Police, during the very end of the Second World War, and then in the immediate post-war years it was very common to see the webbing whitened, and this would become more prevalent. The Royal Navy would start using whitened webbing on parades and so forth as well. So it made sense for these to be manufactured in white, and as you can see, these have 1950s dates in them, 1953. Same manufacturer as we saw before, W&AJT. You've got the arrow at the top there and the size, and then we actually have a War Department stamp down on the leather here. As you can see, the construction is exactly the same, but for being made in white webbing. And as you can see here, brass eyelets, non-blackened brass eyelets in this instance, and the same stamp in this, or I thought there was. Oh, no stamp in this actually. I thought these both had a clear stamp in them, but it matters not. They are a pair. They are the same size. So as I say, these used in the post-war years with whitened web equipment. Obviously, these show up quite late on, certainly with the gun carriage teams who engage in the gun carriage races. You see these used into the 1990s at least in the white form that we have here. So quite a long-lived bit of kit and quite an iconic bit of naval uniform from that point of view whenever sailors were serving on shore. So hopefully it's been interesting looking at these. As I say, the last pair to look at here, this whitened pair of post-war examples. We may well have a look at leather examples used by officers and warrant officers as well at some point, and hopefully at some point in the future maybe a reproduction pair of the canvas versions. I doubt I'm going to find an original pair, but it would be interesting to have a look at the earlier examples of these as well going forward, and I'm hoping to be able to do that at some point going forward. Actually on the lookout for a pair of the later manufactured Australian versions, but I don't know whether I'm likely to find any of those. We shall see. But that's a look at these Mills pattern naval leggings. So I do hope you found it interesting looking at these. Quite an iconic bit of kit, and certainly something which I was interested to talk about on the channel. We may well have a look at the leather version of these, which were worn by Royal Navy officers and warrant officers at some point in the future. And they're of course very similar to the Victorian gaiters or leggings worn by the British Army. And that sort of perpetuates that design. The Royal Navy carried on using them for quite some time, obviously with the webbing examples we've looked at here, the web examples we've looked at here, and with leather versions for officers and warrant officers, and we'll have a look at those in a future video going forward. If you'd like to see that and other future uploads on the channel, please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as always, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated, as I always say. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down there as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.